Hello, and welcome to Dark Hearts with Stacey Lee. It's Cult Day here on Dark Hearts, and I am so excited for this one. This cult story even has a bonus conspiracy theory wrapped into it, so you're getting 2 for 1 today. A couple of weeks ago, I told you the story of how I got really into Kundalini Yoga right after I left the Mormon church. I was looking for some new spirituality. And then a couple months after I got into Kundalini, I was sitting in class with my turban on, doing my meditation, and I looked around at everyone else doing the same thing, and I thought, son of a bitch, I did it again. I left one culty thing for another culty thing, and I left the class and never went back. Well, imagine my surprise, not surprised at all, when I started seeing articles about this woman called Guru Jagat, the queen of Kundalini, and she was under fire. And then 2 weeks ago, the documentary that I have been waiting and waiting for was released. Now, all cults are bad. All cults are dangerous. Those of us who study cults know no matter how different the cults think they are from one another, they are at their core exactly the same. Now, there are levels of dangerousness in the world of cults, and today I'm talking about one of the more dangerous cults, in my opinion. This is one of those cults that makes people give up everything. It makes people give up children. It makes people give up material things. It's dangerous. This is the story of Kundalini Yoga, Yogi Bhajan, and his handpicked successor, Guru Jagat, and the Breath of Fire cult. I'm your host, Stacey Lee. Let's begin. First, we have to talk about the birth of Kundalini Yoga. In 1969, a man named Yogi Bhajan was born in Pakistan in 1929. I don't think it was Pakistan then, but what is now Pakistan. He is from a Sikh family. Sikh is an ethno-religious group. They adhere to Sikhism, a religion that originated in the 15th century. When Yogi Bhajan came to Los Angeles, he established a company called 3HO, which stands for Happy, Healthy, Holy Organization, 3O. His brand of Sikhism appealed to the hippies of the 1970s and was based in vegetarianism, world peace, social justice. He also taught astrology as it relates to God and connected with other spiritual leaders of the era. Yogi Bhajan was anti-drug in a time when drugs were becoming more prevalent. He taught about health and yoga and also preached the massive consumption of garlic juice as a tonic. So he obviously smelled really good too. Yogi Bhajan quickly gained a very large following, and he was even honored at the White House by organizations that promote peace. He was covered by major American magazines and newspapers. He got a lot of really good press. Now, there are some elements of Kundalini that can be traced back to 1000 BC, but Yogi Bhajan had a whole different take on this. He incorporated the ancient practices with capitalism. Now, look, we talk about a lot of wacky shit here, but if there are two things that do not go together, it's yoga and capitalism. So this was very different. Like I said, I got very into Kundalini for a while. It's all about breath work. And I'm going to tell you, like I've said before, when you practice this breath work, you do feel amazing. The pranayama technique is a rhythmic flow of moving air forcefully in and out of the nostrils. And when you do this, you are oxygenating the blood. And there's kind of a high that comes with that. It makes you feel almost intoxicated. It increases your lung capacity and it helps to release toxins in the blood through oxygenation. I believe in breath work. I do. There's a lot of science and research to back up the regenerative and health benefits of breath work. It reduces stress, it helps you become more mindful, and it improves your concentration. I know because I practiced it for over a year. And you know me, I am not really into the new age BS stuff, but there are things things that I truly believe can benefit your health, and breath work is one of them. There are aspects of Kundalini that look like yoga, where, you're standing in some similar poses and things, but a lot of it is about this forceful breath. The breath of fire is actually a pose. You stick your tongue all the way out, and you're supposed to kind of curl your eyes and your ears back. The tongue comes out all the way out, and you I can't believe I just did that on camera. But even after that short little burst, I'm like, woo! And it really does give you a feeling of being really wide awake, and you feel energized when you're done with it. A few years into his time in America, Yogi Bhajan had this massive following, like I say, and he started opening up centers all over the country. As these centers opened, Yogi Bhajan needed devotees to help him run these centers. I'm not going to go into all the details about all of the people who were chosen to assist him, because today we are focused on only one of his devotees, and her name is Katie Griggs. Katie, for reasons known only to Yogi Bhajan, became Yogi Bhajan's favorite. Now, this is according to Katie. You will see later in the story that all of Katie's claims have come into serious question. Let's talk about Katie. Katie was born in 1979 in Fort Collins, Colorado. Her mother was a farmer and also a therapeutic clown. She would dress as a clown and work with therapy groups. Her mother also had a dance group where she engaged in dance therapy. So Katie was raised very into New Age spiritualism. Katie's described by people who knew her since she was a child as an attention seeker. Katie wanted to be in the spotlight all the time. She became an advocate for victims of injustice, but also claimed to be a victim of injustice. Yogi Bhajan supposedly sent Katie to open one of his centers, which are called the Ra-Ma Institutes. Katie was put in charge of the center in Los Angeles in 2013. Yogi Bhajan was dead at this point. We're going to get into that. She later opened a second center in Boulder, Colorado. Now, we've talked about Boulder before. For some reason, Boulder, Colorado has become this very strange and interesting hub for New Age activity. There are, at least 10 cults that I know of that are in Boulder, Colorado right now. And from what I understand, that number is growing. Because you guys know what happens with cults. Somebody rises, up by the leader, becomes the leader's favorite. And then that person decides, oh, you know what? I'm better than the leader. I'm going to start my own cult. So they branch off and start their own thing. And that's why there are becoming, more and more cults in Boulder. Part of the reason. And then some cults are actually moving there. Like if you watch the documentary Love Has Won about the lady that turned blue, they moved to Boulder, Colorado, because it's just known to be this hub of New Age activity. It seems odd to me. I'm thinking more like Sedona, Arizona, or somewhere like that, which I equate with New Age spiritualism, but Boulder as well. Now, Katie became very active on social media, and in 2015, she also became a raging conspiracy theorist. She promoted QAnon conspiracy theories and very quickly started to go off the deep end. Now, Katie was not known as Katie to her followers. She took on the name Guru Jagat later on. You know what I'm going to say. You already know. Her massive following included celebrity clients like Alicia Keys, Kate Hudson, I think Russell Brand at some point, which he is now just a total kook. People apparently connected with Guru Jagat, Katie, because she talked about how Kundalini saved her. Katie says that she was raped in college and that the trauma from the crime led her to abuse alcohol and drugs. She claims that the practice of Kundalini healed her addictions. Now, Katie's story goes that before she met Yogi Bhajan, she practiced with a teacher called Harajuan, and she says he became a father figure to her. She began to view him as a second father. Katie's own stepfather would later say that Harajuan exploited Katie. He said that it was very obvious to him that Katie had daddy issues, and this man exploited her trauma and gained control over her. By 2011, before she was Guru Jagat, Katie was known online as Kundalini Katie. This is when she started to get famous, and I think Russell Brand started actually promoting her. We need to cover him because that man, I'm sorry, he is just an absolute mess. He's actually dangerous. But anyways, he at one point, before he became a Jesus freak, was a follower of Kundalini, Katie. And before that, he was a sex addict and a drug addict. You know, he's just one person that jumps from one addiction to another. And now he's a Jesus freak and a conspiracy theorist. And it's all to escape, in my opinion, the very serious allegations against him. He has many, many accusers. So I'll probably cover him soon. But he turns into kind of a promotion person for Kundalini Katie and gets other Hollywood elites to follow her. Kundalini Katie's following grew, especially online, and she drew in young women who were focused on self-help, women that felt unfulfilled in their lives, in their jobs, in their relationships, but these were also women in corporate positions who were trying to climb the corporate ladder. And this is where the strange crossover between yoga and capitalism begins to form in Kundalini Katie's practice. It had already existed before with Yogi Bhajan. We're going to get into it, but he had a whole bunch of companies. Now, Kundalini Katie became kind of the face for the millennial girl boss thing very early on Instagram. Katie was telling the women who followed her that they could get rich, follow their dreams, become more desirable, and people ate it up. By its 8th year in business, Kundalini Katie's website and Instagram accounts had more than 2 million visits each month, and thousands of followers were paying $19 a month to access her exclusive content. Katie then expanded her business to include shops that sold crystals, jewelry, and clothing items from her new clothing line called Robotic Disaster. The clothing was featured in Harper's Bazaar and even in Vogue. Katie was the spiritual guru of the moment. Critics were hard on her from the jump. First off, you need to know that people who practice Kundalini always wear white, and they keep their heads covered at all times with a turban that goes all the way over the top of the head. I just know this from what I learned, but the turban is to protect, insulate, and keep your crown chakra close to your body. This is also rooted in Sikhism, which is a religion. And it's very interesting to me why Katie wasn't called out earlier for being a white woman who was appropriating Sikh culture. And not only that, Katie did not wear the head wrap appropriately. She wore it more as a wide headband with her hair flowing out of the top. And this brought a lot of criticism from people who are actual Sikhs. And they did not appreciate her bastardization of their cultural attire. It was almost an act of defiance. Now, I want to stop here for just a moment because I love talking about this stuff with you guys. You guys, some of you have been with me for a long time, and you so get this. Katie didn't go straight from Katie to Guru Jagat. You already know what I'm going to say. Like most cult leaders, Katie went through different incarnations, and she changed her name a lot. First, she was Katie, then she was Athena Day, then she was Zeus, and then she was Katie Day. All of those happened before Kundalini Katie, and then finally she became Guru Jagat. This is something, as you all know, we see over and over with cult leaders. They love to change their name. Even Sean Combs, Puff Diddy, P. Diddy, Diddy, and yes, I do consider him to be a cult leader, a different kind. From Diddy to UFO cult leaders, they love to change their names. I actually have a former friend. We were once joined at the hip, and I still have a lot of love for him, even though he hates me now. He has changed his name like at least 5 times. He very, very, very much wants to be a cult leader. He starts up this little thing and then always ends up on bad terms with the people he's involved with, just like he ended up not liking me. You know, then he jumps to this group, he gets this group going, and then he ends up not liking the people in that group, jumps to this group, gets that going, ends up not liking the people in that group. It's fascinating to watch him. And I'm not even going to try and lie. My husband and my best friend, they tell me there is Stacy and there is Stacy Lee. Maybe this is why it's fascinating to me. Now, my 2 personas are not born out of any desire to be a cult leader. They are born out of my crippling social anxiety. You guys know more of Stacy. Even my husband has said when he watches my episodes, he's like, you've really come out of your shell and become more of yourself, on camera. I didn't used to be when I very first started out, but I feel a lot more comfortable with you guys. You guys make me more comfortable, and you know how much I love and adore you, and you've helped me come out of my shell. But when I go out in public, and especially when I have to perform, when I have to sing, I am Stacey Lee. I'm in 5 pounds of hair extensions and heavy makeup, and I wear so much jewelry, it takes me like 10 minutes to put it on. My best friend calls it my armor. I've got like bracelets to here, big earrings, necklaces, a big coat. I am not great in crowds. I'm also not an improvisational person. I have other musicians that'll be like, come jam with us. And I'm like, jam? Have you met me? If I don't have a month to prepare and an outfit that I feel flatters me and hides all the things I want hidden in different camera angles, I'm not doing anything. Yes, it's vanity to some extent, but more than that, it is just insecurity. I am not great on jumping on stage and just doing something unrehearsed. I am a practiced, studied, rehearsed performer. And when I perform, I am Stacey Lee. She is my guard dog. Even when I go to events and charity functions for the work I do in the civil rights and queer community, I am most of the time more in my Stacey Lee mindset because it's my protection. It's my barrier. Because I am so introverted and insecure about certain things, I get very easily overstimulated and I get overwhelmed in social settings. The point of this TMI is to tell you, I think I might be somewhat fascinated with cult leaders because they do change their persona and reinvent themselves. And I think there's a part of me that understands this and maybe a part of me that's a little bit jealous that I'm not able to completely lose myself in another person. Maybe I'd be able to go out more. Like I say, I don't have an ulterior motive with my performance persona. She's just my protector. And I ain't trying to lead anyone, bitch. I can barely lead myself. But there is part of me that understands why people might have another persona. I'm a female in the music industry. I'm constantly criticized. I'm too old. I'm too blonde. I'm fat. I'm a girl. Girls suck at music. Girls shouldn't be in bands. So yes, Stacey Lee is my outer persona when I perform and when I have to socialize. At 54 years old, I am telling you, I know less now than I've ever known about the world. But I love ya. You just have to know I love ya, and I'm happy that I'm more comfortable here. So Guru Jagat, Katie, is now leading this movement and is in charge of these different centers in different cities. And then Yogi Bhajan dies. I don't know. I had a really hard time defining the timeline, how long Katie was involved with Yogi Bhajan before he died, but he died in 2004. Now, before he died, he started huge companies. He started Yogi Tea, which is still a huge tea brand. You see it in the grocery stores. That company makes $60 million a year. Yogi Bhajan started Akal Security. It's a security company that provides security services for federal buildings, courthouses, immigration detention centers, even for NASA. And that company has had over $1 billion awarded to it in federal contracts. In 2023, Akal Security was worth $700 million. It has 12,000 employees. Yogi Bhajan also started a company called Golden Temple of Oregon, which is a natural foods company that makes cereal and tea along with other products. Now remember, the umbrella company is called 3HO, which is, again, happy, healthy, and holy. So we find out later on that Yogi Bhajan, this guru of, health and new age thinking, you already know what I'm going to say. Yogi Bhajan lived on Taco Bell. He wasn't vegetarian. He wasn't healthy. He wasn't practicing what he preached at all. In fact, it would come out later on that in 20 some odd years, people that were with him for a very long time, no one ever saw him actually practice yoga or Kundalini. Yogi Bhajan just led the classes and gave sermons, long sermons, but his hypocritical diet was the farthest thing from the actual problem. The actual problem was decades of abuse, leaving behind a trail of hundreds of victims. After Yogi Bhajan died in 2004 at age 75 from complications of diabetes, some information starts to come out. The end of Yogi Bhajan's life was very unhealthy. He had had multiple amputations with doctors taking parts of his feet over and over because he was so sick. After his death, people were kind of scrambling to take over his cult and the businesses that he ran. And like I say, we're focused on Guru Jagat today, so that's what I'm going to talk about. But there is a whole story about what happened to 3HO after. Let me know if you want to hear more about it. Now, from the outside, it appeared that everything was moving along very well for 3HO. The company was making millions and millions of dollars. The message inside the cult was a strange mix of karmic philosophies and capitalism, which again, I don't get it. But the people running the cult were really pushing the movement along and growing the movement. In 2019, all of that began to change. Why? A shift in cultural and societal discussions centered around women's rights and victims of sexual abuse rights. Because you see, now try to contain your gasps of shock. Yogi Bhajan was a horrific sexual abuser, a rapist, and a monster. I know. Let's not all keel over because of course he was. It just never, ever, ever fails. When we talk about cults, the leader is almost always a monster. People who seek power and control fall into two categories. They are either magnanimous, righteous people who truly want to make change, or they are monsters who have ulterior motives and want to control people, push their own desires onto others, and most often will abuse people in order to get what they want. There's very little gray area. The older I get, the more I see, and the more I become convinced that yes, there really are two camps of people who get into politics, into self-help, into spiritual movements. People who seek to lead. It's pretty much a this side or that side mentality. A woman named Pamela Sahara Dyson comes forward to tell her story of devotion to Yogi Bhajan. She was with the yogi for 16 years, rising to the position of secretary in his organization. She was running the businesses, the ashrams, the yoga studios all over the world. Now, Yogi Bhajan claimed to be celibate, but married with 3 children. So I celibate and 3 kids and married. I don't know. The supposed wife of Yogi Bhajan is a woman named Bibi Inderjit Kaur Khalsa. Please forgive my pronunciation on that. I just don't understand how you're married with 3 kids and also celibate. But of course, Yogi Bhajan was having sex with all of the women who worked for him. It was expected of the women who surrounded Yogi Bhajan. It was not an option for them. After Pamela came forward and wrote a book in 2019, many other women started to come forward with horrific stories of abuse. Now remember, we're not talking about David Koresh. We're talking about a man who was very well respected, had this immaculate reputation as a spiritual leader, so powerful that he was honored at the White House. He was admired for his business prowess, and he was thought of as this great advanced mind, a man of God, an evolved man. But now there is no question. The history books will not remember him as any of those things. Yogi Bhajan will be remembered in the same way we remember Harvey Weinstein or Jerry Sandusky. He was a monster, and he will rightfully be remembered as one. When there are 100 or so accusers, there's no way around it. As if all of these allegations were not bad enough, some journalists dive deep into the history of Kundalini Yoga and find out that a great deal of what Yogi Bhajan taught was just made up. He was a liar. He was a con man, and he was a horrific abuser of women. Kundalini Yoga does have some very loose ties to a practice that is 1,000 years old, but most of Kundalini Yoga is made up. I'm so glad I got out of this as quick as I did. More and more stories begin to come out about the way Yogi Bhajan treated the women around him. He was physically abusive. He was emotionally abusive. He was sexually abusive. He now has 16 official accusers who have written and recorded accounts with a total of 300 cult members who have either corroborated the accusations or stated they witnessed the events firsthand. There is no question at this point that Yogi Bhajan was a terrible human being who lived only for self-gratification. He had invented Kundalini Yoga basically out of thin air and had incorporated it into parts of his sociopathic and narcissistic personality. Now, at some point in time when the allegations begin to come out, Guru Jagat has risen to the top of the proteges, and she has become, by 2019, the face of Kundalini Yoga. She was the girl boss of yoga. She told people she was the CEO of 7 global businesses, in addition to being guru. Her social media presence was huge. She had at least 20,000 subscribers paying that $19 a month I talked about so they could access her Rama workshops. She had studios in Venice Beach, California, in New York City, and Mallorca. And then, like I say, she was selling everything from crystals to jewelry and her own clothing, robotic disaster. Like one of her gauzy white dresses, really plain, just kind of a smock, was going for $300 on her site. She called it spiritual streetwear. Guru Jagat really became the face of the millennial spiritual movement. She would sit in classes for hours after the actual yoga practice ended and tell these long, detailed stories that verged on TMI. She would talk about very personal information, including her own cycle, her childhood, her love life, things that you'd expect to hear only from a close friend after a few drinks. But that is what endeared her to so many. They thought, look how personal she is. She trusts us with this information. She's letting us into her life. And I can see how that kind of transparency from someone so rich and powerful would be alluring. We all like authenticity. We are all attracted to people who are honest and vulnerable. But Katie, Guru Jagat, was a person with a lot of mental health issues and even more secrets. Like I said, she'd been raised on New Age spirituality, and she had some strange ideas. Yogi Bhajan had this philosophy about sexual assault that is, frankly, one of the most disgusting takes I have ever heard in my life, and that is saying something. Yogi Bhajan said, and this is on tape, rape is always invited. A person who is raped is always providing subconsciously the environments and the arrangements. Ay, Santa Maria. There are no words to describe the rage I feel lately, and I don't think I have to describe the rage that I feel lately because I am confident that many of you are feeling the same things I am feeling. I don't need words because I know you feel like I do. And that take, I really have had to monitor my emotions lately and remind myself that getting angry only hurts me. But I am telling you guys, mark my words, there is violence in our future. I feel it. I feel it. It's like a rumble under the soil. There is something coming, and it's going to be dangerous. Women are fed up. And I don't know. I don't know what's going to happen, but something's going to happen. At other times when things didn't go the way I wanted them to go, I didn't feel this way. I don't know. I don't think I have to explain it. I think a lot of you feel it. But Guru Jagat had these disgusting beliefs instilled in her. She lived with them for years, and these horrific, twisted beliefs wormed their way into her psyche. She was very much a, if you can believe it, you can achieve it type guru. She promoted manifesting your own destiny. She promoted a belief in envisioning yourself as rich and thin and in love in order to become rich and thin and in love, and people ate it up. By 2013, Katie was insisting that everyone call her Guru Jagat, even her parents. She also got married at some point in time to another follower named Austin Dunbar. He was from Arizona. He now goes by Teg Nam, and it is her marriage to this man that begins the very serious and disturbing spiral downward that leads to Guru Jagat's ruin. Katie's parents told HBO that on a visit home, Katie, now insisting everyone call her Guru Jagat, lost her mind at her parents, screaming at them for an hour for watching CNN. She told them they were part of the deep state. She ranted about George Soros and Pizzagate, and her parents had no idea what she was talking about. They were like, we were just watching the news. We don't know anything about pizza, whatever. We don't know anything about Q. We don't know what you're talking about. Katie's parents were really concerned about her, and she left after this visit, and they started to dig deep into some of the things that she had said, and they learned about QAnon, and they realized that their daughter had become wrapped up in this cult. It is actually wild to me, truly wild, how people can think they are such leaders. Their mindset is so much more evolved and they are so much more tuned in, and the rest of us are just dumb sheep when they are actually the sheepiest of the sheep in Sheepville. They are such sheep that they lose their human intellect and critical thinking skills while truly believing they are smarter and more informed than anyone else. It is Dunning-Kruger on another level. If you don't know what the Dunning-Kruger graph is, please look it up. It's fascinating. If I live to be 100 years old, I will never be able to wrap my brain around how people can think they are so much more aware and awake when they are really the most lost among us. So we have this woman who has co-opted Sikhism. She has co-opted feminism. She has gained this massive following built on the back of someone else's made-up religion, Kundalini and Yogi Bhajan. And now she's gone off the deep end in another cult. She's a white woman in a turban that she's wearing incorrectly with her hair flowing out the top and not covered as the religion requires. She is a woman who has wanted to be famous since she was a little kid. She wanted to be a famous actress. She desperately wants fame. And there's another thing you need to know. She spends money like it's water. Guru Jagat went through so much money, people around her would just stand in awe. She's also one of those people that has an answer for everything. She's smart, she was engaging, she was funny. But as you begin to listen to her for longer periods of time, you realize a lot of the things she says do not make sense at all. I read a lot of accounts that said she would contradict herself a lot. One month she would say this, and then the next month she would say this, almost like she forgot what she had said before. People in the media start calling her the Elizabeth Holmes of yoga. They're catching on. Something is just not quite right here. And then journalists dig in and find out that Guru Jagat used to be a YouTube astrologer. Nothing wrong with being a YouTube astrologer, but it's just funny to me that she's gone through so many incarnations, trying everything she could possibly try to get famous. All throughout 2017, 18, and 19, Guru Jagat becomes more and more radicalized. She is single-handedly responsible for a lot of the new age to right-wing pipeline phenomenon that we have witnessed. This woman had the ear of millions of people, and she was peddling this out and out bullshit to so many people who followed her and looked up to her. And then the pandemic hit. Katie's mother said her daughter became unrecognizable. As Guru Jagat, Katie was holding rallies in defiance of California's mask ordinance. She refused to get vaccinated, and she told her millions of followers not to get vaccinated as well. Then word begins to seep out from underneath the doors that hold all of these cult secrets so tightly. Guru Jagat also cultivates a very toxic work environment. She was abusive to those who worked for the 3O companies, and she was also very irrational. She would have moments of total and complete loss of professionalism, yelling and screaming over nothing, throwing things, temper tantrums. She spent so much money that people claim they could not keep up with all of the credit card bills. A lot of these people were working for minimum wage, and they had never seen so much money go through another person's hands. But then when it came time to pay the employees, Guru Jagat wouldn't pay them. Some of these people had the title of director in these huge companies, but they were making minimum wage because it was a spiritual position. Oh my hell. What a racket. You know, I feel very sorry for people who get taken advantage of like this. I do. I understand better than most people how easily you can be brainwashed and believe something crazy, and you don't even realize that you're in that position. In these situations, I really do look at the people in charge and think, how do you live with yourself? You know, how do you look at yourself in the mirror? But the truth of the matter is, it takes nothing for them to live with themselves because they are not good people. They're not. And they don't care that they're hurting others as long as they are getting what they want. Guru Jagat was known to be a prolific liar. It was expected of her by people around her. Everyone knew she was a liar and no one ever called her out on it. It was just part of who she was. She made people who worked for these multi-million-dollar companies work as independent contractors, so she didn't have to pay them a salary and she did not have to provide them with benefits. In one company-wide group chat, when she was angry about something, Guru Jagat wrote, "You all, I will wring your figurative necks if not every photo you've ever taken up until now isn't in the Dropbox." So that's an example of the way she spoke to people. And she had all this extra power because not only was she these people's boss, she was their spiritual leader too. It was a real abuse of power and a very real conflation of two things that should not live in the same space. In April of 2021, Vanity Fair journalist Haley Phelan interviewed Guru Jagat, and she told the writer, "I'm a controversial figure. This goes with the territory. I'm not love and light Susie. I'm very direct, and I talk about shit people don't want to talk about." I don't think she's wrong. I think that's why people liked her. Guru Jagat was asked why she was a staunch defender of Yogi Bhajan, and she kind of skirted the question. She was asked about Yogi Bhajan's claims that Kundalini was an ancient technology when it was something he just made up. And again, she skirts the question. She scoffs at being called a rape apologist and claims that the allegations against Yogi Bhajan are irrelevant. Oh, are they, Katie? Are the allegations irrelevant? Why don't you tell that to his victims, for hell's sakes? Guru Jagat is then confronted with a screenshot of a text message where she calls Black Lives Matter supporters cockroaches. Someone on the thread said, "I would appreciate not stooping to a level of calling humans cockroaches," and Guru Jagat then doubled down. Journalists continued to dig around in Katie Griggs' past, and now there is some very credible proof that Katie never even met Yogi Bhajan. This is a very controversial take because there are those that claim they had seen the two together, but these accounts come from people that are still inside the cult. I don't think she ever met the guy. She claims that Yogi Bhajan gave her the name Guru Jagat. When you're in one of these groups, the leader gives you your new name. But other people in the world say that the word guru would never be given as part of a name. The word guru is a title. It's not given as part of a name. This is one of those situations that honestly will probably never have the full truth. There's just too much convoluted information and misinformation and disinformation out there. So Guru Jagat just continues running these companies, spending money like it's nothing and treating people horribly. And then it all comes to a sudden and shocking end. Guru Jagat is in Germany on a vacation and she breaks her ankle. She calls her mother to tell her what happened, and her mother told her to rest, to stay down and just rest. Instead, Guru Jagat decided to fly home to Los Angeles. On July 31st, 2021, an unvaccinated 41-year-old Guru Jagat went into surgery for a broken ankle. The day after the surgery, she died of a pulmonary embolism. A very short post was uploaded to Instagram informing all of her followers that she was dead. Immediately, conspiracy theories began to fly. Some say Guru Jagat faked her own death in order to avoid being canceled for all of the apologetics and defense of Yogi Bhajan. Others say she faked her death to avoid facing all of the lies she has told over the years. And then there are those that believe she is dead, but do not believe the cause of death was a pulmonary embolism out of nowhere, but that she did in fact die of COVID. Now, if you're not aware, COVID causes a huge inflammatory response in the lungs, and doctors and researchers have seen a massive uptick in people who have had COVID getting blood clots, especially in the lungs. A very, very dear friend of mine that I have literally known my entire life, went to preschool, clear through high school with, got COVID, and months later, she died of a pulmonary embolism in the hospital at like 51 years old. Oh gosh. Poor netters. And that is just one of many stories I have heard of people dying from pulmonary embolisms after having COVID. Doctors are seeing more pulmonary embolism. They're seeing more deep vein thrombosis. And being unvaccinated and not wearing a mask, living in Los Angeles, traveling the world, there is no question that Katie Griggs had COVID, possibly more than once. And it is the consensus that she most likely died as a result of long-lasting complications from COVID and then sitting in the plane, flying home with a broken ankle. I looked and looked for information on what is currently happening with the 3 HO companies and had a very difficult time finding a company status report. As you can imagine, there are plenty of people trying to step up and become the next Guru Jagat, and we'd need another 40 minutes to talk specifically about that. The Rama Institute is still open and running. I looked at its Instagram account. There's only 60,000 followers on Instagram. That's a far cry from what I expected to find. And then, like I said, HBO just released this 4-part documentary series on this story. I've known about this documentary for about 6 months, and I've been waiting for it to come out. I watched it. It's called Breath of Fire, and it is definitely worth watching if you have access to HBO. If you don't, I'm sure it will be streaming on Tubi or maybe Plex in 6 or 8 months. The documentary goes a lot more in depth about the abuses perpetrated by Yogi Bhajan, and it goes into one of the biggest cons that he had, which involved phone scams and making money through scheming elderly people. It also talks about another of Bhajan's followers, the man named Harajuan, that supposedly, was very close with Katie. Harajuan started running a scam involving toner for copy machines, and the press dubbed him the Toner Bandit. So these were just like these spiritual guys that wanted everyone to believe that they were all about God and vegetarianism and yoga. And meanwhile, they were just a bunch of dirty con men that were sexually assaulting women and stealing money from people. It is just... nothing surprises me anymore. Nothing surprises me. It does not matter how many of these cult stories I research. I never cease to be amazed at the ability of some people to get others to follow them, to believe the most radical, the most ridiculous, the most irrational of ideas. I never cease to be amazed at how similar these cult leaders are, all while claiming to be the most special the world has ever known. And I don't know what bothers me more: the sheer number of people claiming to have magical powers, or the number of people ready and willing to believe that they do. Thank you for joining me today on Dark Hearts with Stacey Lee. Please hit the like and subscribe button if you would like to see more from me. It helps a lot. I've got about 5 or 6 weeks here until the end of the year, and then I'm going to have to make some decisions about YouTube. The channel's just not growing, and I'm doing really well on my podcast. And I may just go straight to podcasting. We'll have to see. Speaking of the podcasts, I have 2. This one's called Dining with Death. This is just the audio taken from old videos posted to YouTube years ago. And this is the current podcast. I post brand new episodes of this podcast every Monday and every Wednesday. And there will be some podcast exclusive stories that you will not see here on YouTube. I want to give a special thank you to all of my patrons. You guys are the best. You're really what's kept the channel alive this long. And I seriously don't know where I would be without you. And you guys know, if you've got a few extra bucks, you can join our fundraiser. Watch this short little video here on the channel. It will explain everything our community is doing to raise money to donate to police departments that have cold case DNA in storage that's never been tested. We're trying to help solve some cold crimes. I hope you're happy and well. The world is a really dark place right now, and I want you to know that I think about you and I worry about you, and I want you to stay happy and healthy. Don't let the bastards get you down. Don't let them win. Getting too angry and getting too upset and getting too depressed only hurts you. If you're depressed, seek medical attention. Go to the doctor. There are doctors-free clinics if you don't have insurance. Get some medication. Take care of yourself. I know people are struggling to buy groceries right now. I know it's difficult. And I hope that our community can be a safe place for you and a bright light, when you need it. If there's anything you guys want to see, if there's anything I can do to help you, to make you feel better, to bring some light to your day, please let me know, and I will do my best to make it happen. I appreciate each and every one of you, and I love you all. Stay safe, my friends, and be kind to each other, and I will see you next time on Dark Hearts with Stacey Lee. Bye.